anxious about extremism, and I think that they jump to conclusions. I would say that broadly speaking, Britain is not a racist society. Take, for example, one of our most beloved institutions, the Great British Bake Off. Look at the finalists. We have a Hindu woman, Nadia. We have Tamil, who is, I think she's Muslim. Oh, she's Muslim. Tamil is a Hindu. And then there's Ian. So I interviewed Nadia last week, and she said, you know, I'm as British as anyone. And actually, the fact that I'm there in the tent making very British, you know, cakes, bunting around, you know, I belong there. And actually, I've had a huge amount of support online from people who just think that I've got every right to be there.
Miriam?
Well, I think the survey you referred to, so the British Social Attitudes Survey, shows that although racist attitudes have been diminishing from the 1980s, we see a spike after 2001, so that people now self-declare as being more prejudiced than previously. So clearly there is an issue with racism. We see it with the FA figures showing, I think, more than a 20% rise, particularly in terms of racist abuse. Met figures for London, 70% increase in Islamophobic attacks. So obviously there is an issue. I don't think it's an exclusively Muslim issue. I think the Runnymede Trust put out a report very recently which talked about the fact that there are ethnic penalties for people in the labour market, but there's also very specific Muslim penalties. So, for example, British-born Bangladeshi men face the same penalties as their foreign-born fathers in the labour market. So when we talk about racism, I think we need to move beyond the idea that there are either racist thugs on one side or that we're all Benetton. We need to talk about structural racism, the degree to which who's poor in this country, who's unemployed, who struggles to get recognised for their skills is very much related to racist structures. And those are perhaps the structures that we need to focus on when we talk about racism rather than sort of individual prejudice.
Well, you mentioned that you think things, and your research suggests that things have got worse rather than better in terms of people suggesting that they're more racist. And Darcus, you came from Trinidad, well, more than 50 years ago now.
53 years ago.
Have you noticed a change in that time?
Yes, it gets more intense.
What gets more intense?
Racism. As I sit here, there is a club with the most vile racist reasons for not bringing in black women. And my daughters are black, you see.
Oh,
my mother was black.
The girls who were turned away from the nightclub, you mean?
Yes.
Because they were.
It's called district.
Okay.
Well, actually, there's also.
And hold on. Worse than that was the Westminster Council has not raised a voice, and they have given them the license to tell black people all kinds of abuse, and they keep quiet. And I'm going to tell you something of which I'm absolutely certain. We don't give up. That is going to be a terrain that will be fought so fiercely that you would wish you weren't born to even see it.
Okay, well, we don't have a right of reply of the club or of Westminster Council, but thank you for making the point. John, you've heard everybody saying that, apart from Rosie, saying that it's become a lot more racist out there.
No, I disagree. I agree with Rosie. I think we live in a much less racist society. I mean, she cited an example of Bake Off. I'd say look at our football team, look at our cricket team, look at our rugby team. I certainly don't think it's based on colour. I think there's a fear of Islam and extremism, without a shadow of a doubt. And, you know, I tweeted out last night to my followers that I was going to come on here and what do you think? And they said, oh, well, hold on a minute. What about Rotherham? What about Oxford? What about Aylesbury? These were the things they brought up, where you know, guys who were Muslim, from largely Pakistani background, who had been raping white girls. And this really hasn't got the same kind of attention as some of the things we may go on to discuss today. So it's about both sides coming together, or all sides coming together. I agree with the Archbishop that actually we need to have open and frank discussion.
All right.
And prejudice is always based, isn't it, on ignorance. So we need to start to remove that ignorance. But it's a two-way street.
Of course. Is it not significant, though, that the two people who are white are saying Britain isn't racist, and the two that come from different communities?
Well, that just could be down to your research. You can have other people who were black who would disagree with you. I mean, I've got friends, believe it or not, who are second-generation immigrants who would say the same thing as what I'm saying. And they're both black, and white and of Italian extraction or of Polish extraction, because it isn't about the colour of your skin.
But I think Miriam has a point. It is about poverty as well, and I also I think it is about class. I think the great prejudice in this country is about class, and I think that if you look at equality of opportunity, you have to look at our educational system.
Yeah.
Well,
I don't think it's about racism.
let's not just talk about football, which obviously has been
Why do other
investigated.
people constantly try to describe what racism is and not the victim?
And
That's what I want to
and more specifically, ignore their voices.
I don't
Well, because there's a
listen
club down the
unless
road
there is
which
an
doesn't allow women in.
Hang on.
You know, the Garrett Club actually does not allow women to be members. You know, there is prejudice.
But
It's
that
not
is
only
anti-feminism.
well, quite, but you know,
You have
it's
to
not,
take the fight to them.
well,
But I would say that football might not be the best example because it's always been an escape route for working class communities. But let's look at FTSE 100 companies in which minorities are vastly underrepresented. Let's look at Oxbridge, where Black and Asian candidates, even when they achieve the same grades as their white counterparts, don't manage to succeed in entering those universities.
And why do you think that is? Hang on a
daughter's
second.
at Oxford.
Can I
My
just
daughter's
say-
at Oxford, and she's white, working class. She has the same problems. That is about class. I've been to
All right.
Christchurch. I've been to the dinners.
Miriam,
I've been
it's about.
to the events. It's about class,
Thank you.
not about the colour
John?
of your skin.
Certainly, social class is a factor.
It's
But
the major factor.
Hang on, let Miriam answer.
still talking. But there's also evidence to suggest that minorities face an additional barrier to the class factor, and I think underestimating that is flies in the face, in fact, of studies that indicate that Black and Asian candidates, whether it's at Oxford or elsewhere, struggle to get in when they achieve the same grades as even their working class counterparts.
All right.
Sure.
The other point
Is it worse or better? That's the question that was framed at the beginning of the programme. The answer Rosie and myself gave was, it's better now.
Well,
That was
it's
the
great
question
that,
was
that
raised, and with the invitation
Duh.
to discuss.
The intensity of it, you don't have it.
yeah.
You
No, of
don't
course not.
know it.
Of course not,
So
I'm not
keep
black.
quiet
No.
while I
No.
speak.
Just let him
Can't
speak.
say
Go on,
if
Darcus.
there's no racism. I can say that.
I didn't say there
No,
was
I
no.
don't-
I can
no.
say that.
At what
But
point
the
did I say
extent
there
to
was
which
no
it
racism?
has spread and poisoned the body politic in this
I
country.
abhor
But
racism.
why is that? Why do you think that is? That
I-
racism, as far as you're concerned, has got worse rather than better.
I born and met it. And it's worse than when I was 6 months old.
But why?
I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. It has always been keeping us in a slave position to get a greater productivity out of us. And
Do you think
I think
racism
there
is
are-
worse now in this country than 50 years ago when you came from Trinidad and
I
Tobago?
wasn't here 50 years.
55
I
years
was
ago.
in the West Indies.
When you came, when it,
Hold on. I was not in apartheid in South Africa. I was in the West Indies as a colonial person. And that will teach you a lesson of how dangerous white power is.
To blood
That
clot.
will teach you about the oppression and exploitation of slaves
I
and
understand.
post-colonial
But all the
people.
slaves
You know
have-
nothing about it.
But how dare you? How dare you?
What do you
How
know that
dare
I
you
do?
paint me like that? You know nothing
You
about
know
that
nothing
about you.
about it.
You would be screaming racism. I actually believe that this week we should have been talking about reparations to slavery. We should have been giving an apology. That's actually what I believe. The question I asked you,
We're going
and the
to
question
talk
this
about it.
programme is about, Darcus, is it worse now than it was before? I say no.
And
What do
he
you
says,
say?
and he says yes. We've heard very
Well,
clearly
tell me
what
how then.
Darcus says.
How's it worse?
Do you know what,
Educate me.
you know what a district club?
I understand what you're saying about that club. I completely abhor
Okay,
that. That's
but-
wrong
What
with
have
it.
you done about it?
I used to.
Darcus,
I
hang on a
like
second, because I want to
White
ask you a
silence.
question. Have you ever
White
experienced the
acceptance.
same sort of discrimination that Darcus is talking about? He's saying, I can speak from a position of a victim of racism and I know what it's like.
And
Yes,
more than
I-
that,
hang on,
when
I
I
understand.
spoke
All
up,
right, let him talk.
for 10 years, I was never not
I
happy.
understand
Let John,
that.
let
And
John
I had
answer the
little
question.
children of
I
mine
understand
suffering
that and
and
value
wondering if my father going to spend his last years in jail for standing up to talk against people like yourself.
John,
that. You're trying to paint
can
me as a
you- can
racist.
John-
No, I'm not.
hang on a
It's a
sec.
You
racist
can't speak
slur.
for me.
wait,
I
we are
want
not
to speak for you.
we are
just
going-
like you can't speak for me.
Okay.
I'm not.
And I don't
John,
understand.
I asked you a
haven't faced
question.
it. No, I
No,
accept that.
just stop a second while we calm this down a little bit, because otherwise we're going to get nowhere with
Yeah,
this.
sure.
the central allegation from Darcus was that you don't know what it's like to be discriminated against, whereas he does.
Clearly not because of the colour of my skin. That is correct. That doesn't mean my opinion is not valid. I've actually run nightclubs and I know what the problem of running doors. I never had a race. My club was in a multiracial area. We didn't have those policies. I know those policies exist and I think they're disgusting and they should be stopped and we should use the law. But the idea that racism is worse in this country now than before is completely false. And the idea as a white bloke that I haven't got a right to express an opinion, I'm afraid, is the prejudice of the worst form. And you should be ashamed of yourself.
It's just as prejudicial.
I'm ashamed
Hang on.
of you, myself.
I want to hear from the other panellists, otherwise it's just not fair.
I think it's
Miriam, can you address John's point, which is it is equally as discriminatory to say, if I am discussing racism, that makes me a racist or makes me a bigot just because I have an alternative point of view. Can you understand that? And can you understand how that stifles debate rather than encourages it?
Yeah, I mean, there's a very interesting study by an American academic called D'Angelo that talks about what's called white fragility, which is when white people talk about race, they consider it to be an attack on them personally, when actually I think we need to move out of this idea again that it's a very personal prejudice to talk about structures. I want to come back to the working class argument because I think it's really sad to see working class communities, of whether they're white or ethnic minority, sort of pitted against one another. The statistics show that 40% of Bangladeshi and Pakistani ethnically speaking children in this country live in poverty. That's compared to 15% of white working class children. That suggests to me that there are structural reasons why we might consider Britain to be racist.
Well, it's a chicken and egg thing, isn't it? Does the poverty come first, or is it about race and culture?
Well, the point is that who's poor in this country is determined by historical reasons. Britain's imperial and colonial past is very much linked to who ends up living in ghettoized, marginalized communities. You can't disassociate,
Rosie.
But you can't disassociate the attitudes of colonialism to.
I don't think it's only about colonialism. I think it is about educational opportunities, and I think we have a completely bisected educational system in this country. And until that is solved, the greater picture is not going to be solved. I think that if one looks at London as a great global capital, compares it to other capitals, there is a certain amount of ghettoization in other capital cities that I do not think you find in London. I honestly think that London is a great example of harmonious cultural living.
Despite race hate crimes going up by 27% in the last year.
Well, possibly. I mean, I'm just speaking anecdotally. My children are all at state schools in London. They have friends, from all colours and creeds. And frankly, I'm not wandering around saying, "Oh, it's all marvellous." But I think, like John has said, I just don't think it's. I think it's got better.
Well, the greatest respect, Rosie, you'll know this because the work you're doing in Hull at the moment, which is where all my relatives came from. I lived there for 2 years after I've been in a children's home, so I know what it's like. It's different as you go out of London. London is very different to the rest of it's almost a country in itself to the rest of the country. There are ghetto areas in places like Birmingham and in places like Coventry where I come from. We do need to address this. We do need to address poverty. It is linked to a large extent to colonialism. I can accept that argument.
Okay. White people are the ethnic group least likely to marry outside of their ethnic group. It is white people that are least likely. They're also the least likely to want to live in diverse areas. So this idea that, actually it's got minorities.
Isn't that because there's more of them?
Well, no, of course not. We're talking proportionately.
Okay. All right. Let's hear from what you've been saying at home. You've been sending us lots of texts and tweets, inevitably, on this, Tommy.
Yes, there's lots coming in. And a lot of people generally saying that we're not a racist country, but there clearly are some racist people that live here. Someone called Swingerleg on Twitter says, racist is a term used by lefties when you question immigration or multiculturalism. They've made the word redundant. Stephen saying Britain is one of the most accepting and tolerant countries in the world, yet every day there's some article or documentary trying to portray us as undercover Nazis. You think that's unfair? Praveen on email says, when I didn't wear my hijab, people's attitudes were definitely different, and this is the problem. We've got this text here. It says, I believe we're becoming less tolerant of the baggage that goes with minority cultures, and this is not racism. And we've just had this video sent in as well.
The complete defeat of the BNP in Britain proves, I think, that we're not a racist country. But there are resource issues in our inner cities
Undercover
in
man.
which white working class
Still.
people often feel they're being put second in their own country, and that's fueling the problem.
That was Peter there, agreeing with what you were saying, John.
All right, thank you very much.
He's correct.
He said something similar to you.
Been neglected
All right.
by the chattering classes and the mainstream media.
Okay. I just
Why I
think.
mentioned Rotherham, which everyone wants to skirt around and forget about.
No black
No, I
person
don't think
involved in
anybody wants
Rotherham.
to go around and forget about Rotherham. But
Let's have a programme about Rotherham.
no, John, John,
Birmingham, Coventry,
John,
Oxford.
you do make the point that basically the fear of being billed racist sometimes keeps things under the radar when they should be fully examined. Like Rotherham. No, I understand why you're making
something like Darcus.
that's my point.
Immediately accusing me of being a racist.
Isn't
Isn't
it
Idiot man.
Isn't it difficult
You
to
don't know
have?
what racism is?
I know exactly what
It
racism
is.
is. Mark.
What,
Him invent it.
we are not going to get. Hang on a second. We are not going to get anywhere, surely, with the
How?
racism debate in
Marcus
this
said how.
country, if you two are the example of how we can not meet or even come forward. And it's just you're wrong and you're wrong. Never twain shall meet.
No,
How on earth?
That's
will
not quite
any
true. That's not quite
racism-
true.
I do not know
Check.
that I came here to bring together three anti-racists. That's what I am here. I'm here to speak from the bowels of the black community. I'm here to speak from a long struggle that we laid out in this country. Do you remember when they killed 14 children in a party
Newcross.
in
In
Newcross?
1981, I
Newcross.
remember.
13 dead and nothing said. I
Newcross.
was the organizer of that demonstration of 25,000 black people. And I had to see mothers and fathers looking in boxes because of those children and black
Fighting for
dead.
a party.
I wept. So please, the carnival has brought 1 million people on the streets, positively able to dance and to sing and to wear costumes. 1 million people. And the police, the white police, tried to stop it.
But it's still the Notting Hill Carnival is very successful
Preach,
and
Darcus.
continues to be
I
very
used to be the
successful.
chairman.
I know, of course
I
it
will
is.
tell you about it. And
all right.
all the ways and means that we have to keep it there.
Darcus, another time, because I'm afraid we have run out of time. Thank you for all your comments this morning.